Yeah, right. Here we go again, right? It's another one of these lectures. They bring us in here. They sit us in these seats. They talk to us about making good choices and good decisions and don't do this and don't do that. I remember when I used to sit in seats just like these, and I would listen to speakers and communicators just like me. And if I was 100% real, raw, truthful, and honest, I didn't give one rip what they were going to talk about. I was just kind of glad that I wasn't in class. They don't know me. They don't get me. They don't relate to me. They know nothing about me. I'm cool. I'm just going to do me. Listen to me, y'all. This afternoon, I promise you I'm not going to stand behind a podium and hold up little fake bags of drugs and tell you what you should and what you shouldn't do, what you can and you can't do. I just want to live life with you, to be real. Your story, my story, it's the story. And what I mean by that, when you strip it all away and the authentic you comes to the surface, you know, the you that woke up this morning and you rolled out of bed, wherever that may be, and you had to look in the mirror, and that the real you with the emotions and the situations and the circumstances that help narrate and navigate your life. Today, I just want to live life with you because I promise you I'm not here because of the degrees behind my name. I just know that in this room, from the front to back, the left to the right, every single one of you, you're rare, you're scarce, and you're unique. There's no other you, and you were meant to be able to do hard things, that you're not a product of the environment, you're a product of what you find the courage to do. And for too long in my life, I settled for the comfort of just staying the same. I settled for the comfort of just sliding and gliding and doing just enough because I was terrified of looking in the mirror and taking control of what I can control. And so today, as I kind of get a little spend of time with you, I promise you I'm not here for any other reason other than the fact that your story, my story, it's the story. And to be honest, as I get into this today, there'll be an energy and an intensity and a passion you'll probably hear through my voice. It's because I know every single one of you in this room, man, you've got deep wells and that you were born to be able to navigate your story well. But sometimes it just takes you finding the courage to confront who you need to confront. I don't know, for me, it was easy to try to blame it on dad abandoning my story. It was easy to blame it on the trauma and the unfortunate events in my life because that's what's tough as a young adult right now. As a young adult, as a young grown-up with who you are, sometimes as a student, as a young individual, we have to navigate things in life that we didn't ask for, we didn't sign up for, but life knocked on the door and it was presented in front of us, and now we just have to deal with it. And it can be tough sometimes as a young individual having to deal with things that we don't have creative control. That's what's hard about growing up in life, right? Like, we don't always have creative control of home life or certain circumstances or things that we've had to endure as people. And so here we sit as a young adult, a young individual, trying to navigate who we are and what we're supposed to do with our life. And we don't always feel like we have the support around us, and we just gotta deal with it. But this is what I know, is that every single one of you in here, regardless of sometimes of how you feel, and sometimes of what you've had to navigate and what you've had to weave in and out of when it comes to the canopy and the canvas called your life, is that, man, you're rare, you're scarce, and you're unique, and science proves it. I know in a world with 8 billion people, it's easy to get caught in the statistics, and we live in a world of social media where we compete and we can compare, and we're trying to find value, but this is what you need to understand, period. You're rare, you're scarce, and you're unique, and science proves it. At your fingertips, at your fingerprints. It means there's 8 billion people on the planet. And the reason why, if you ever get arrested like I have been, unfortunately, a lot of times when I was 18, 21, 22, and 23, and they would fingerprint me, the reason they want my fingerprints is because these fingertips and these fingerprints, if they put them in their database, that even though there's 8 billion people on the planet, these fingertips and these fingerprints are rare, scarce, and unique to me, which means anything that I touch, anywhere that I've been, I can tell you who I am. I can put on the front and wear the mask and try to get you to be convinced of who I am, but the authentic me, the real me, these fingertips, these fingerprints. And in a world that the world puts value on rarity and scarcity and uniqueness, there's no other you. And you need to understand, man, that your life was meant to achieve and to become, and that you're the author, and you're the designer, you're the technician, and you're the movie producer, you're the sound mixer. You're really the one that when you begin to realize life isn't hiding from the storm, it's learning to dance in the rain. It's learning to realize, you're cool. Appreciate you guys, man. It's learning to realize that when it's all said and done, man, if you can take control of what you can control. You can't control what they think, what they say, or how they treat you, but you can control how you react, how you respond, and what you do. So let me rewind it back. And let me first off say I'm proud of you. And you know why I'm proud of you? Because you're a group of young adults that are navigating a time in world history that no one's ever had to navigate before, period. Our parents and people can say they walked up 5 miles barefoot uphill both ways when they were younger. Life was hard. No, you're navigating a time in world history with technology when you're developing who you are and how do we deal with trauma and how do we deal with success and how do we deal with emotions. You're learning how to navigate real emotions in a world that's so interconnected by the internet. And we get exposed to every corner and every nook and every situation on the planet at a younger age. And we're having to deal with real life issues and real life decisions and real life moments. You're a generation, I promise you, years down the road, they're going to write case studies and they're going to write research papers on how your generation navigated these times when you're figuring out who you are. And here you sit, and I'm proud of you. No one's had to do what you're having to do right now. And so it may not be picture perfect. And maybe right now at times you've zigged when you should have zagged, and you've taken 5 steps forward and 3 steps back. And sometimes maybe we've only taken steps back. But this is what I need you to know. As long as there's breath in your lungs, there's hope in your heart. And don't you dare quit. Here you sit, and I'm proud of you. But this is what you got to know too. Like, I'm not against technology, y'all. Like, I'm not against the social media world. This thing ain't going nowhere. We rock videos. We pump content. This thing is a valuable tool. We can learn and we can grow. We can be more interconnected. But this is what you got to know deep down inside of you. This can never replace this, because the human connection, the power that I can't see my blind spots and you can't see your blind spots, and we as people that are meant to do life together, it's the most powerful tool that we have. And you're growing up in this moment right now, cutting edge on a time in world history that no one's ever had to. And I'm proud of you, but I got you to get you to understand. I told you, man, I'll rev this thing up. I got one speed. It's all gas, no brakes. Let's go. But you're in a time in your life right now where, man, you really are the author. You really are the one that can learn to dance in this thing called life. And it's not hiding from the storm. It's creating a symphony. It's realizing, man, that it's not about perfection, it's about progress. So now let me wind it back and let me dive into a little bit of my journey. I'm born and raised in Indiana. I come from a family of 4. And it was mom, dad, sister, and me. And it was poor, and poverty was real. And we had a whole lot of nothing. And when I was growing up, maybe I was young, dumb, and naive, and I thought I had a picture-perfect family. I never saw moms and dads fight. Again, I got one speed. It's called squirrel. When I was a kid, I broke everything. And so they kind of limited me as a kid going into their bedroom. It was a place in the space that was off limits so they could turn me off, they said. I never saw moms and dads fight when I was a kid. And we didn't have a whole lot. And in Indiana, we're supposed to be good at basketball, even though I've never saw us win anything in life. But I wanted to hoop. But I didn't know when I grew up, I was only going to be 5'7"-ish. I should have picked a different sport to want to do when I grew up. But I wanted to play ball. And so my grandparents, they were kind enough one year when I was about 11 to pour a piece of concrete. And my dad went out and found a telephone pole and he stuck it in the ground. And when he went out and got a basketball from some jankety garage sale, some rim, and he stuck it up on that pole. And I walked onto the court at 11 years old, and my heart was full of gratitude because I was getting to play ball at my house. Maybe it doesn't seem like a big deal to you, but we were dirt poor, and I had a basketball court at my house, and I'm playing with my dad, my hero, larger than life. And 11 years old, I walk onto this court about to play ball. I'm excited, and I go to shoot. True story, the first time that I ever let that thing rip, my dad yacked, and he laced it off my face. And I was confused. You're a grown man and I'm a kid. And I pick up the ball again and I let it go, and my dad, For 2 hours, this dude beat the brakes off of me playing basketball, and I didn't watch the dumb ball go in the dumb goal not one time. And I walk off the court defeated and demoralized, leaking snot and tear crying real ugly. And I heard a voice from the back, and it was my mama, and she came out the house and she said, "Tim, why wouldn't you let your son make one bucket?" And still to this day, I remember the words that my father said. They reverberate through my mind when I think about it, because it was serious and it was stern. And he looked at me with no play in his eyes. And he said, "My son will probably never be the most gifted or the most talented, but he needs to know it doesn't matter what he has or what he doesn't have, where he comes from or where he don't come from. He has to know it's not about making goals on a basketball court, but in life, there will be objects that he's pursuing and things that are going to keep it from him. And he's got to know deep down inside of him, he's got every ability to see the problem, identify the problem, and solve the problem. Giving up won't be in his mouth." My dad was always trying to teach me that I'm not a product of my environment. I'm a product of what I find the courage to do. That none of this around me defines me. And even though it plays a part of my story and my experience, and sometimes there's adversity and there's challenges and there's things that I didn't ask for and that I didn't sign up for, but life came knocking and I got to deal with. What you've got to understand, as much as I'm proud of where you sit right now, and you've navigated at a time in world history that no one's ever had to navigate, we can talk about the COVID experiences and the unique challenges that brought, but deeper than that, it's a time called technology, and you're the cutting edge, and here you sit on top of home life and traumas and adversities and pains and this real stuff. But this is what you got to know. Pressure is a part of the story, and pressure can bust pipes. And if you don't understand the power of pressure, and if you don't step into pressure, the energy that it builds, and the pressure, the intensity, if you don't find the proper way to deal with pressure, pressure can be destructive and dangerous and create negative and painful explosion. But you know what pressure also does? Pressure is the same instrument, the same element, the same tool that creates diamonds. Pressure and intensity and heat. And pressure is not the problem in our lives. Will we find the courage to continue to confront, fight, and fail? Will we continue to understand pressure isn't a problem, pressure is a privilege, and I can use pressure to make something of crazy value, because you're rare, you're scarce, and you're unique, just like a diamond. Your fingertips prove it. But it's easier said than done. So right after basketball, mom and dad, they call a family meeting. And family meetings are normally a positive environment for me, because we didn't have a lot of nothing. And whenever maybe moms and dads would find a few dollars to take us on a shopping trip to get some clothes for the school year, or maybe they found a few dollars to take us on a few day vacation, they would always call a family meeting so we could sit around the table and probably enjoy and experience and embrace the opportunity. But life brings you and I moments of impact. And moments of impact are those moments in all of our stories, and every single one of you in this room have them. Situations that you've been through, and sometimes they're positive and sometimes they're negative. They're experiences that when you pause and you reflect, maybe it was winning a championship or some crazy and cool vacation, or maybe it was the loss of somebody close to you that lost their life on the street, or you went through some trauma, right? They can be good or they can be bad, but we've all got experiences. When we pause and reflect, the details are just more vivid. You remember the people, the conversations, and maybe even the clothes, because that thing, whatever that thing was, impacted you deeply. We've all got them. And right after this moment, my mom and dad called a family meeting, and I walk in and I remember every part of the story. Dad to my right, mom across from me, sister to my left, my back to the sink and to the stove and to the fridge, the kitchen table, the decorations. My kitchen was ugly. My dad began to say, "Nikki, Nathan, we need to talk to you." My dad began talking about the divorce and separation, and he moved up and he moved out and he ghosted. And I was confused as an 11-year-old kid. I never saw moms and dads fight, and now my dad's gone. And I began to ask questions, and I began to realize that behind the bedroom door, it wasn't just because I had a lot of energy and I broke a lot of things. Behind the bedroom door was where the verbal, the mental, the emotional abuse happened. And behind the bedroom door was the knockdown fights happened. And behind the bedroom door where the drugs and the alcohol happened. And I looked at my dad, my hero, and I said, "I'm never gonna be like you. I'm gonna prove to you I don't need you in my life." But unfortunately, I absorbed something from my parents. And this is where it gets tough for us as young people. See, we can't always control the people always around us. And sometimes when those people around us, that they don't have healthy ways of dealing and processing with traumas and pains and emotional experiences, if we're not careful, we get some of that cross absorption. But when we do have creative control of friends and people and mentors that we choose to put ourselves around, that's why you've got to take control of who you surround yourself with is because we are a people of absorption. That's why some of you in this room right now, you're sitting next to your friends and you can finish each other's sentences and you dress this kind of the same way and you like kind of the same music, because we are a cross-absorption kind of people. And my dad didn't mean to teach me some of these negative coping strategies, but I developed some coping strategies that I learned from him, and he didn't mean to teach them to me, but I kind of developed them. And I didn't close the bedroom door, but I put on the fake face, the fake smile. And I learned to go through that moment, keeping everybody at an arm's reach distance. And I began to go through that moment where I just didn't trust people, because if my daddy could walk away and abandon me, how the heck could I ever trust you to? And I caught myself in a vicious circle. And when I started this, and I'm talking about the importance of the human connection, the importance of making sure that we've got meaningful relationships and connections, and understanding the power of being vulnerable and transparent, because truthfully, this is what I've learned in life. Resiliency and grit and perseverance and problem solving, it's a part of your DNA. It's who you are. Period. And I don't have to know who any of you are by name or your story or your circumstance. I care about all of that. But what I already know that's already deeply embedded in all of us in this room, resiliency and grit, it's a part of you. But it's activated and it's ignited by the human connection. There's a reason why counselors and therapists and social workers, they ask us questions. Not because they want to solve a world problem, but because they know if you and I talk, if we engage, if we begin to communicate, something that's already inside of you gets activated, it gets stirred up. It's part of who you are. You were born to do hard things. You were born to endure, to persevere. You were born to have grit. You were born to confront you, because you're not a product of any of that around you. But the problem with me, though, is being resilient, which demands vulnerability and transparency and communication, that requires trust. And if my dad could walk out of my story and I decided that I'm not trusting anyone, the very tool that allows me to continue to persevere, which is healthy human connection and vulnerability and getting to a place where I don't really care what you have to think or what you have to say, that I can be real and I can be raw and I can be vulnerable. This thing called trust was the very thing that paralyzed me, because I trusted none of you. And so I saw myself in this vicious circle. I found myself caught up in this moment where I'm living life going from middle school to high school. And all through middle school, I was kind of the straight A student. And when I get to high school, my high school was about 2,700 students, and there were 700 freshmen, and I'm maintaining and I'm doing just enough to get by. You know, it's like this dude out in the water treading water. I didn't need help. I could tread water long enough, or I'm the guy behind the dam and there's a leak and there's a hole and I can plug the holes. I don't need any of you. I got this. I'm cool. But eventually, wave after wave, after my freshman year, I was a straight A student, voted going to be one of the most successful freshmen in my class. But it was then that the thoughts of suicide became real. It was then when the isolation became real. It was then the anxiety, what if this, and wanting so bad to find my value and feeling like I mattered and belonged. I needed all of you to accept me, but I wouldn't talk to anybody because I trusted none of you. And you find yourself in this vicious circle, and you compete and you compare, and you don't know how to talk, and you don't want to be vulnerable, because truthfully, trusting people's terrifying, because once I expose myself, I can't control with what they're going to do with it. And I get in this crazy tug of war that I'm going to trust somebody one day when I feel like I can. But because of my traumas, my hurts, and my pains, I'm never going to feel like I can trust people. So I live my life of isolating, and slowly, wave after wave. And so for me, I couldn't control always the internal pain. So I started also having physical pain, self-injury, self-harm. I started finding myself anxiety, what if this, and what if that, and what if this, and what if that. I started having these thoughts that no one's gonna miss me, it doesn't matter, who cares? I see others, I hurt others, I'm gonna make a forever choice, I'm gonna end it too. I lived in that place. And then the pressure, it comes out this way. Hurting people hurt people. Hurting people begin to step on people with their behavior, their actions, and how they treat others. because we want to feel like we matter, we belong, and we have worth, but we don't know how to communicate or articulate that. And so we naturally are always reaching and trying to keep our head above the water and plug the holes. So naturally it comes into this next step. I start getting into fights, and I'm quick to throw my hands, and you may whoop me or I may whoop you, but it even about winning the fight. It's me trying to take my worth and take my value and prove to people that I matter. And then I become the class clown, and I become the class joker, and I become the one that acts up and acts out and clowns up and clowns out because I'm trying to take attention. I need people to think that I matter, but I won't talk and I don't act like I care. But when you strip it all down, we all want to feel like we belong. And so I started getting into this place of hurting people hurt people. And I get into this place of using my past and using my experience sometimes as my excuse. You know, Dad's out of my life, and I've been through a trauma, and I was going through abuse, and so I want people to feel like I matter. So if I'm not quick to throw hands and to get into a fight, sometimes I start to leverage my past for the pity and the empathy. I try to use my story and my struggle to try to get some empathy from people around me. And at the end of the day, it's not wrong for others of trying to encourage me, but I started using it as a crutch. And I would get people to say, I believe in you and I love you and don't give up. And that would feel good in the moment. But when I would go back to my house, I didn't own those feelings. I didn't own when you told me you believed in me and you cared about me. It felt good in the moment, but I didn't own those emotions. And see, I found all these coping strategies. I'll show you this picture, man. It's rough. But this picture on the left, man, that's me at 18 years old. I found all these coping strategies, all these ways of dealing with life that was like a stone skipping across the top of the water, but it never had any depth. The self-injury and the self-harm, it would mask it and band-aid it for a moment. The suicidal ideations and the thoughts and those places of the anxieties that would paralyze me, they would find these moments of release, but I would never get to the root. The anger, the rage, how I treated people, it would mask it for the moment, right? I'd get into the fight, get kicked out, outbursts of anger, wrath, acting like I don't care. It helps it for the moment, right? But when the authentic you comes to the surface, the real you, when you get to popping the pills and taking the drinks, my sophomore year, my dad was an alcoholic and an addict. And I told that dude I was never going to be like him. But I was so focused not to become like him, I walked right into his footsteps. I was so consumed on not to be like that dude, and I was too afraid to begin to lock my eyes on goals and dreams, and what I feed will grow and what I starve will die. I was feeding what I was not going to become like, and I walked right towards it because it consumed me, and I wouldn't forgive and I wouldn't let go, because forgiving what you've been through, at times if you're not careful, you think it's like you waving the white flag, that it's okay what you've been through. And so we don't forgive because we don't want to think that they're going to be justified in what they did to you. And they live in your head rent-free, consuming you, right? And so my life, as my sophomore year, I go from straight A's to straight F's, and I start popping pills and taking drinks. And the thing about drugs and alcohol, it seems so innocent and simple at the beginning. I'm just having a good time. I'm just experiencing. I'm just getting a mind change. I'm just getting into a mind shift. And truthfully, it would mask and band-aid the hurt and the pain, just like when I self-harmed, or just like when I got into the fight, when I would pop the pill and take the drink and get the mind changed, right? Like, it helped for the moment, but I would wake up just as empty as I was the day before. And you find yourself in this vicious circle of tug of war. Because truthfully, I was terrified of looking in the mirror and confronting me. I found all these coping strategies that never got to the root. And I always say it's like a stone skipping across the top of the water, because I didn't realize that, man, I was a stone, and I'm meant to create ripple effects, and my life has value because I'm rare and I'm scarce and I'm unique. But that demands you having to confront you and taking control of actions and choices, and what I feed will grow. I live my life with basically 5 habits of my heart and my mind: transparency and accountability and hard work and good choices and value in people. But you can simplify that down to 2 things: make the next right choice and treat people the next right way. So this was my journey, right? And here I was navigating my high school story. And this picture on the left, it's me at 18 years old. I go from straight A's to straight F's. I skipped school 63 times my senior year. I don't even know how it's possible. I find myself getting expelled. And maybe I'm the only one, right? Maybe I'm the only one in this room, from the front, the back, the left to the right, that's ever been in a place that, you know what, like there was a moment of clarity and you're like, you know what, I know I need to change. I know I need to switch up how I'm living life. I need to switch up some friends or some of my action steps, like a real moment where I want to change. I know I need to change and I should change. But you know what happens? Nothing ever changes. And maybe I'm the only one, but the reason why, if any of you have ever had those moments when you were serious about maybe being better with your grades or being better with your attendance or being better with how you treat people or being better with what you're doing out there on the streets or being better with just how you're handling your life when it comes to responsibility and taking control of what you can control. Real moments of clarity, right? But walking through that can be difficult, and walking through it alone is daggone and almost nearly impossible. But a lot of times of what we do, we revert back to what we always know, and we lie to ourselves, and we think that this is really okay, but it's not where we want to be. It's just where we're comfortable. And so we slide and we glide, and we go through one year to the next just doing just enough, even though this isn't the authentically where you want to be. It's what you know. Because change requires you to be uncomfortable, and no one wakes up and says, today I want to be uncomfortable. And that's just real.